Hey everyone, welcome to another Finity's ADD gaming session. I am Finity, and today we are going into Diablo 3, and in particular, since I have access to the beta for Diablo 3 with the Necro, we're going to go a little bit into the Necro character. Now, I recently got this character to level 70, so what I wanted to do for this video is go through and look at all of the different skills and runes for the Necromancer. Now, on the test realm, you'll see that there is this new vendor. And this vendor is the one that sells the PTR special items. So the ones that they're planning on bringing into the game. And you'll see that they have all of these different things separated. So there's 5 different sets. And as I make other videos, you'll see that I'm collecting blood shards. So I'm at 542, so I can buy 2 of these. I'll make a video for each of the different sets, and we'll look at what abilities may go well with this particular set. And then we'll also look at some of the different gems and the different two-handers that come along with this. So it does require me to collect a lot of blood shards, but I'll be doing that and then unlocking these things on a video for you guys. So keep an eye out for those videos. But first, let's look at the different skills for the Necromancer. Okay, so let's start with the primary skills. Now you'll see that there's 3 different main primary skills. One is the Bone Spikes. And this one will summon bone spikes from the ground, dealing 150% weapon damage. You have the Grim Scythe, which is going to be a slash with a summoned scythe in front of you, dealing 150% weapon damage. And this one is generating 15 essence. These ones are, this one's 24. This one's 12. This one's also more melee. This one is going to be ranged. And Siphon is also going to be a little more ranged. It'll 15 essence for each damage that is dealt, each time damage is dealt, so this could generate a lot of essence quickly. Siphon Blood from targeted enemy, dealing 300% weapon damage as physical, and then the Siphon will heal you for 2% of your total health every second while channel. So this is going to be a little bit of a health recovery too. Now let's start with the Bone Spikes and look at the different runes that are available. So the first one is the Bone Spikes. And the Bone Spikes will stun enemies for 1 turn. There are a lot of stun-based builds out there, so this could be potentially useful for those. You have the Bone Pillars to go with the Bone... Sorry, this one was called Sudden Impact. This one is Bone Pillars. And with the Bone Pillars, instead strikes the target and up to 2 nearby enemies with large Bone Pillars for 225% weapon damage. Then you have the Frost Spikes. It leaves a Frost Patch that reduces the move speed of enemies by 60%. So this is going to be a slow effect, and there's often builds that go around this as well. You have Path of Bones, which now unleashes a line of spikes that deals 100% weapon damage as physical. Damage is increased by up to 10%, by up to 100% for those further away. So you can kind of increase it based on how far you go away. So this could fit nicely with kind of a ranged build with some of the legendary gems that are in the game. And then you have Blood Spikes, which hits and enemies hit bleed for 50% weapon damage as physical over 2 seconds and heal you for 0.5 of your total life over the life of the duration. So you can see that there's a lot of different things that can go on here. And so what I want to do, I had to get rid of my golem there because he's making all kinds of noises at me, and I want to make sure you guys can can hear everything okay. So let's take a look at some of the ways that these things work. So Bone Spikes by itself, you see it creates a spike of bones. Okay, so fairly straightforward. Then we'll add Sudden Impact. Same animation, but now if it gets hit, we know that it can stun the target. Bone Pillars is the one that will target and up to 2 nearby enemies in addition to the 1 with large Bone Pillars. So let's look how the Bone Pillar looks. So it's pretty cool. You get this spike coming out of the ground. And if there's 2 other targets nearby, it will target those. Then we have the Frost Spike, which leaves behind a patch of cold afterwards. So you see that it leaves that little fog cloud there. You have the Path of Bones, which is the one that I was primarily using while leveling, and it creates kind of this neat little chain that goes all the way down. And then you have the Blood Spikes. And I'm assuming these are going to be red. I haven't used it. Yep. So the animations on these are really cool. I like the way that they've built the Necro so far. I think they put it together pretty well. So the next one is the Grim Scythe. Now the Grim Scythe is probably going to be your main primary if you're doing a Melee-mancer build, which is going to be a melee attacking one. One of the sets here, as we go through them in other videos, will be based on the melee build. So we'll look into those. But Grim Scythe by itself will summon a scythe in front of you and deal 100%, 150% weapon damage. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so it creates kind of a slash type effect there. The next one is going to be the next rune is Execution. So Execution, enemies at low health have a chance to be decapitated and instantly killed. This one probably won't have much of an animation change. Actually changes the color of the scythe here, so it makes it a little bit more purple instead of the blue color of the previous. But that's pretty much the only animation change. The dual scythe is slashed with 2 summon scythes, dealing damage and pushing them together. So this one will have, you'll see, kind of 2 sides, moving them together. So this could be, probably, I'm guessing it looks like a really powerful rune if you're doing a Melee-mancer build. You have the Curse Scythe. Enemies have a chance to be inflicted with a random curse. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So this one's a little bit more gray in color. Then you have the Frost Scythe. Gain attack speed for each enemy hit. This one also could be potentially good for a Melee-mancer build in order to increase your attack speed, depending on how the builds go. And this one kind of has a whitish color with a little cold aura that comes off of it. Then we have the last rune, which is the Blood Scythe, which I imagine will be red. And it'll heal you for 1% of your health per enemy hit. Now, all of these ones that do a lot of health gain, they're important because what happens with the Necromancer is that some of their spells you can use health in order to cast. It's a nice little ability, but you would have to make a build where you're recovering a lot of your health so you're not dying. Okay, so again, you can see that it's a red scythe here that's coming through. Okay, and then the last one, which is Siphon Blood. So let's look at the base animation here. So it kind of makes this little pathway of blood to wherever you're targeting. So the first rune is the Bloodsucker. So you pull nearby health globes to you while siphoning. So this one is going to help you recover your health a little bit. So if there's health globes nearby, it would grab those. Then the next one is to suppress. So enemies are slowed while you siphon blood from them. So it still has kind of that red coloration, but it also is kind of helixed with the white of the blood, of the frost. Then you have the Power Shift. Damage increases the longer you siphon from the target. So let's see if this animation changes. This sounds similar to the Disintegration by the Wizard, but it's not really changing any animation. And it might be because I'm not targeting a particular enemy. So just something to kind of keep in mind. But this one seems kind of similar to that. So damage is increased by 10% each time damage is dealt, up to a maximum of 10 stacks. So you're looking at up to 100% each time. Combine that with this one where you're dealing an extra damage amount. So you're increasing your damage by quite a bit here with that particular one. This may go well with Compass Rose Wailing Host type build, where you're just standing still and just firing this, because you could do a lot of damage this way with a primary attack. Next one is going to be the Purity of Essence. So Essence is gained. Essence gained is increased to 20 while you're at full health. Now, Essence is the main kind of casting resource of the Necromancer. So this one will help to regenerate that a little bit quicker. So it could be 20 instead of 15. So let's take a look at how that looks. And now you have a little bit more of a blue helix going on with that. And then lastly is going to be the Drain Life. So increases the amount of health restored, but no longer restores essence. So this is going to be a non-essence based build. Now this is possible. There are a lot of spells with the Necromancer as we go through these that do not have any essence cost. It's just a pure casting cost, and it may have a timer associated with it, but that's pretty much it. So let's take a look at how the Drain Life looks. And this one has a little bit more of a darker blue helix going on with it. Okay, so those are the three primaries. They all appear to have different uses that could be beneficial. But the main one I think is the Grim Scythe is the one that kind of sets itself apart from the other two, mainly because that would be specific to a melee build. The other ones not so much, but they could potentially be used, and as we go through the sets, we'll look at the different combinations you can use. So let's next look at the different secondaries. So you have three secondaries. You have the Bone Spear, which summons a piercing bone projectile that causes 450% weapon damage. There's also the Skeletal Mage. Skeletal Mage is actually pretty interesting because he raises a skeleton. You raise a skeleton from the ground that attacks your foe, dealing 400% weapon damage as physical over 2 attacks. Now, this one I'm just going to move ahead really quick just because there is a particular one, this one, a particular rune. So Skeletal Mage with the Singularity, it consumes all essence to summon a powerful minion. The minion's damage is increased by 3% for every essence consumed. Now, if you go back to your Siphon build, if you do the Drain Life and don't restore essence, so you're not doing an essence-based build or something like that, and you let it regen normally, you could potentially do something with Singularity and Skeletal Mage, because even right now at level 70 without much gear associated with the Necro at the moment, I have 250 essence. 3% per that is 750% increase in damage. So there is a lot of burst that you can do with the Skeletal Mage potentially. And we'll look into that as a potential build with one of these sets as well. And then last one is the Death Nova. Now, Death Nova, unleash a Nova that deals 350% weapon damage as poison to all enemies within 25 yards. Now, this one is similar to the Poison Nova that you may have seen in Diablo 2. So it is kind of nostalgic for me to see this ability. And I would probably want to use this in a Necromancer build. I don't know how useful it would be outside unless you can range it. So let's look at the different runes for each of these secondaries. So starting with the Bone Spear, and let's look at the animation also. So with no rune. So you have kind of the simple spear that's being launched. So then the first rune is the Blighted Marrow. Now the Blighted Marrow, damage is increased by 15% for each enemy Bone Spear passes through. Now this one is a piercing. If you didn't see the last, I forgot to read the last sentence there. It's weapon damage as physical to all enemies it passes through. So this is a piercing weapon. It'll do everything in a line. And for each enemy it passes through, it deals 15% more damage. Now this is going to require you to kind of line up a lot of your characters so that you can increase damage as it goes farther out. During Rift runs, it's quite possible because there are a lot of narrow hallways that you're going through. There are some really open maps, but there's also some very tunnely type maps. So Blighted Marrow could be very useful in those scenarios. And let's just go ahead and take a look at that again. So this one is going to be kind of a twirling drill-looking spear, as you can imagine, because it's going through multiple targets and doing more damage as you go through. The next one is Teeth. Now, Teeth is a spell that was in Diablo 2 as well. It was one of my favorite on my Necromancer in that game. It's a little bit different in this game. But what it is it launches razor-sharp teeth that deal 300% weapon damage as physical to all enemies in front of you. Now, this is fairly simple, except that it's not generating as many teeth as that. There may be something in the sets that increases that, but just so you see that it kind of, and I'm running out of essence here, so I just have to be, I'll be mindful of that as we're testing. But you'll see that it actually is doing the teeth in kind of a cone type shape. Now, I have to see if I can regain some essence here. I think this one doesn't require me to do any... Okay. I'm going to save myself some time and just restart the game in order to get my essence back up. And then we'll continue to look at the rest of these. Not attacking anything at the moment, so I'm not able to regen my essence as quickly. And I think maybe Scythe actually lets me... No, it's per... All of these are per enemy hit, so... Okay. So, the next one with Bone Spear is called Crystallization. Now, Crystallization reduces the enemy attack speed and increases your attack speed for each enemy hit. So each enemy hit has their attack speed reduced by 20%, and your attack speed is increased by 3% for 3 seconds up to 10 times. So this is a pretty nice one if you're increasing your attack speed. We'll take a look at that here. It is part of the cold set, so I'm expecting it to be a little bit blue, and it is. Okay, so we have kind of a blue frost spear that's going on. It has some nice abilities to it, potentially. Reducing attack speed of nearby enemies is nice, but it's a single target. Unless it penetrates, again, you're going to need a very narrow hallway for this. So this may or may not be useful. The next one is going to be the Shatter. Instead of piercing, it now detonates on the first enemy, dealing 450% weapon damage as physical to all enemies within 15 yards. Now this is going to be kind of that AoE type damage, which might be a little bit better than waiting for the piercing. So you can target the first enemy. A lot of times, even in tunnels, they're all grouped up. So this one may be a little bit better. And we'll look at how that looks. So it looks kind of similar in terms of the graphic. And then the last one is the Blood Spear. And the Blood Spear will will deal damage increased by 518% at the cost of 10% health. Now this is one of those that we were talking about where it can cost health instead of the regular essence. So, and this one will actually cost both. So you'll see that it reduces the essence and it reduces the health. Okay, so you're spending health at a cost to increase your damage. Now with the right build, this may be very useful because it's really nice to increase your damage by 518%. You also could just do something like this where it's dealing 450. Maybe better. This one will definitely provide more burst because you have still the original weapon damage here. So just something to kind of keep an eye out with all of these health costing spells. The next one is going to be your Skeletal Mage. Now this one is going to require 40 essence, so I may need to restart a couple of times here. But we have the regular Skeletal Mage. Okay, so he pops up, and he kind of follows you around. He has a timer, so he's only there for 6 seconds. So you can see now as I tabbed and come back, he's gone. So it's a 6-second one, but you can summon him again. So if you have a lot of essence, you can basically keep him active. Now, going to the next one with the Gift of Death, Risen Mages leave a corpse behind when they die or expire. Now this could be useful for a corpse build. And you can see you can have multiple mages as well. Okay, so you're not just restricted to one. You can have a lot of different ones, and these ones leave behind the corpse. Okay, so let me go ahead and restart here really quick. And then we'll look at some of the other runes for the Skeletal Mage. Now, the next one is Contamination. So it raises a contaminated mage that channels an aura of decay. So I'm expecting this one to be a little bit more green in color. Yep. And you can see he's kind of pulsing with damage. So this could be a pretty nifty little one in order to get some poison damage and get some targeting going on here. Again, you'd have to see what the set is, but this one is potentially useful. The next one is Skeletal Archer. So raise a Skeleton Archer that deals 400% weapon damage as cold. Skeleton Archers increase your attack speed by 3% for 5 seconds each time they deal damage. Max of 10 stacks. So now instead of a mage, you're getting an archer. It's helping with your attack speed. You have a little companion that will come with you. Okay. So this is going to be potentially another one because of the attack speed increase that you may want to have on your Melee-Mancer build. So you have a ranged kind of ally to go along with you if you're doing melee. So this one could be potentially fun. The next one is the Singularity, like we discussed. It'll use all of your essence. So I'm going to save this one for last because after this one I'm going to have to restart. And then we have Life Support. So Life Support, Risen Mages cost 10% health to cast, but lasts an additional 2 seconds. So instead of 6 seconds, it'll be 8 seconds. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this one. So summons with the red. It'll last now 8 seconds. I wish one of the things they do, and I think it's because you can summon multiple of them, so it doesn't show it. A lot of times, there's a little bar here that shows you how long your effects are going to last. And they don't have that for the mage. They don't do a lot of times with the pets either, so it's not unusual. But it would be nice to kind of have an idea. But you could always just keep on summoning again. And then the last one is Singularity, which is going to drain all of mine, and it's going to summon. It's going to consume all essence to summon a powerful minion. The minion's damage is increased for every point of essence consumed. Okay, so for this one, I have 147, so it would increase it by, what is it, 421 or something like that? 147, 2, 3, 2, 2, 4, 1, 100 and, yeah, so 447. So it should be pretty interesting to see how this works, so let's see. Okay, so he looks like a bigger mage than the first one, but that's pretty much it. And now all my essence is gone, so this is going to be, if you use that one, you're going to get a lot of burst damage, but you'll want something where you are regenerating your essence at a really fast pace. So you can summon more of those, you can kind of keep up that burst damage. I'm sure there's some kind of set that will help with that Skeletal Mage build, because it seems like a really nice ability there. So then looking at the Death Nova, we have kind of our standard Death Nova. Okay, so a nice big pulse of damage there. Then we have the first rune. Each cast increases the radius of your next Nova. So this one is pretty interesting. So it increases the radius of your next Nova by 5 yards up to 2 times. So let's see if we can actually notice the difference. So I'm going to kind of spend it relatively quickly here. Okay, and you could definitely see the difference. So it did expand itself on each one. And we'll check to see if it goes beyond. No. And the last one ends up going right to kind of this corner of the forge here. So it stays the same after 2. So it looks like it's a pretty interesting ability. I'm not necessarily sure that the increased range is important. So I don't see this as being a terribly used rune in general. The next one is the Tendril Nova. So now heals you for 1% of your health per target hit and reduces damage dealt to 225%. So it instead now heals you, but it does less damage. Could be potentially useful for a melee build in order to kind of keep your health up. And it's a pretty cool graphic with all those red tendrils that are coming out. So this one may have some potential. The fact that it's reduced weapon damage will definitely be a turnoff for some people, but with the health increase, that's always a nice thing to have. The next one is Blight. So this will leave a lingering patch of Blight on the ground, slowing enemies and causing them to deal 15% less damage. So this could be another one that's useful in a melee build, since the Nova is generated around you. So let's take a look at this. So you can see that it kind of creates that patch that lasts for a little bit. That may be something useful in a melee build to slow everything down, get them to do less damage, keeps your survival up. So Death Nova could be useful in that scenario. The next one is the Bone Nova. So spines radiate outwards, dealing 475% weapon damage as physical within 12 yards. Again, so it's kind of this short range. This one becomes a little bit shorter, but it deals more damage. So 350 and 25 yards compared to 475 with 12 yards. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. Okay, so it kind of creates that cool effect there. And I'm running out of essence here, but that one also seems like it would be a very powerful Necromancer type ability, where if you're in melee, you have a lot of enemies around you, you can do the Bone Spike Poison Nova. That will allow you to do a lot of damage in kind of the general area, and could help with bringing down a lot of those enemies. And then the last one is the Blood Nova. Now, the Blood Nova spend 10% health to unleash a Blood Nova that deals 450% weapon damage as physical to all nearby enemies within 25 yards. Okay, so now you're looking at this one is 475 within 12. This one is 450 within 25, but you have to spend 10% of your health. So again, the health build is something you would have to look into if you were going to use this. But let's go ahead and take a look at the ability. That's pretty awesome. I think that may be my favorite animation so far. It's just a wave of blood coming out from you. Alright, so those are the 3 secondary abilities, and those are all the runes associated with them. I think from this one, my favorite one is the Skeletal Mage, based on potential. Singularity in particular, I think, has the most potential, I guess, for having a really good build. We would have to see how the different sets go. So as we explore the sets, we'll see if Skeletal Mage fits into any of them. So the next one is the corpses. So the corpses, you will see, have no cost associated with them. The only thing they need is a corpse nearby. So you will need to make sure as you kill things that you use their corpses in order to do explosions. The other way, which I found kind of useful as leveling, is with this command golem. There is a rune called the Flesh Golem, and it can command the golem to a targeted location where it collapses and creates its own pile of 8 corpses. Then you can use those corpses in order to kill enemies who provide their own corpses, and you kind of create this chain. So this is another potential thing that you could do with this. But looking at the corpses, the corpse abilities themselves, you have Corpse Explosion. So, and this one's going to be a little bit harder to do in terms of graphics. So as we make videos later on, you'll be able to see what the graphics are, but we'll just kind of go through the runes on these. The Corpse Explosion, target an area, exploding all corpses within 11 yards, dealing 250% weapon damage, and as physical within 20 yards. So it takes 11 yards of corpses and then explodes them to 20 yards. You have the Corpse Lance, which target an enemy to summon projectiles from nearby corpses that cause 900% weapon damage. Now, this all depends on how you have your corpses laid out, but this could be pretty cool because it is a target enemy, so it could be a lot of burst to like a Rift Guardian or something like that. Then you have Devour, so consume corpses within 60 yards to restore 10 essence per corpse. Okay, so 10 essence per corpse. So this is going to be your corpse-based essence recovery. This could be a really nice way to go along with Skeletal Mage. Just as a quick thing then, with your command golem, if you cause it to collapse, it'll cause 8 corpses, and then you use this ability, you'll gain 80 essence back. Now your pool is 250, so that's only about a third, but if you kill other things, then you have more corpses, so Devour could be a really nice one. And then the last one is Revive. So target an area, reviving up to 10 corpses. This one is right now really powerful. The moderators on the forums have said that this one is probably going to end up having a little bit of a change because you're summoning so many different corpses at any given time. Revive is actually one of the more powerful spells in here. So be careful about using this right now. As this changes, I'll give you guys updates. But Revive right now is super powerful, and it's something that the mods have been saying, basically, that they're going to be kind of changing a little bit. So let's look at the different runes for Corpse Explosion. So obviously you have the no rune to start. The first one is Bloody Mess. So this is going to increase the size of the explosion. So it goes from 20 yards to 25. This one, Close Quarters, now explodes corpses close to you, dealing 325% weapon damage as poison versus 250% as physical. This could potentially be part of like a poison-based build, a Melee-mancer build, since you're getting more concentrated near you. So this one does have some potential as well. Shrapnel, explode corpses now away from you, hitting all targets in a cone. So now this is going to create a conical explosion rather than the circular. And just to kind of show you, I think I can... So you see, it creates that little ring, and everything in that ring ends up exploding. So if you do shrapnel, so it will probably explode everything along the way here. Okay, so those are the two. That's the shrapnel one. Then you have Dead Cold, so it freezes all enemies caught in the explosion for 2 seconds. So this could be part of a slowed or a stunned or a frozen build. And then the last one is Final Embrace. So corpse pull themselves together towards the nearest target before exploding, but now Corpse Explosion costs 3% life per corpse. So if you have a lot of corpses, this could potentially be really costly. So you'll want to be careful about using this. You would need a lot of health regen kind of going on. But it's not providing much more damage. It's just grouping all of the corpses together before exploding. It seems like maybe Close Quarters is a little bit better depending on how you're using this. Shrapnel allows it for a little bit more range, Or even more so would be Corpse Lance, since it now causes projectiles to go towards the enemy and you don't have to kind of waste life. So Final Embrace, not too sold on this one, but it is kind of interesting to kind of look at. Next one is the Corpse Lance. Now, I don't think any graphic is going to come.
No.
Yeah. This target requires a skill. Let me see if I can... Let me summon my command golem. I hate this thing because it makes so much noise, but I'll get rid of it afterwards. Okay. So we'll see how this looks.
Not possible.
Oh, I don't have a target anyways. I just have the corpses. So I guess while I have this here, I'll just show you kind of the corpse explosion graphic. So you can see that they have these corpses now that show up. And as you kind of move your mouse, it tells you which ones will explode. In the heat of combat, it's not going to be terribly easy to see. But just so you have an idea, that it'll kind of highlight the ones that will explode. And when you explode them, you'll see that it makes that really cool animation. So that's the corpse explosion, going back to the corpse lance here. So the first rune, each lance slows target by 10% and reduces its damage by 6% for 10 seconds up to 5 times. So this is a little bit more of a control ability. Let me get rid of the golem here so it doesn't keep on making noises. Like that. Let me just click that for now. Okay. So then the next one is the Brittle Touch. So Brittle Touch, enemies become brittle, increasing their chance to be crit by 5% for 5 seconds each time they are hit with a Corpse Lance. So this could be kind of interesting if you're focusing more on crit damage. So rather than increasing your crit chance, you can increase their chance to be crit, and then increase your crit damage. So this could provide for a nice little burst of damage as well. Ricochet, Corpse Lance has a 20% chance to ricochet to one additional target. I think if there is a way to get multiple runes of Corpse Lance as we go through different uniques and stuff that come up in the game, the combination of Brittle Touch and Ricochet could be really nice. Visceral Impact stuns the target for 3 turns, so to go along with kind of a stun-based build. And then Blood Lance, so this is another one where you spend health. So spend 5% of your total health to launch an additional lance from yourself towards the target that deals 300% weapon damage as physical. This one I think we can test, so we can see kind of... actually, I don't have a target. So
that is not possible. Yeah,
I don't have a target, so it's still not letting me. But this could be potentially nice because you have an additional 300% weapon damage lance to go along with the 900% that's coming from the other ones. You could get a nice little damage burst here. But again, 5% of your total health. You'll need to make sure you have a lot of different health steal. Next one is Devour. Now, Devour consumes nearby corpses, restores essence. Satiated increases your maximum life by 2% for 2 seconds for each corpse that's devoured. It's a very short time frame that is increasing your maximum life. You could get a lot of increased health, but you would have to continually kind of keep this active. So this one may not be very practical. It's a nice rune, but it may not be practical unless there's a way to kind of keep this gain active. So we'll have to see if there's anything with that in the sets. You have Ruthless. Additionally consumes your minions for 10 essence per minion killed. So if you have like the 7 skeletal archers, then you can devour them. You can increase your essence. Then you can maybe summon a skeletal mage. You have a nice little combination potentially going on there with this one. Anything that increases your essence generation will have maybe some impact with that skeletal mage singularity build. So this one is one to keep an eye out for. The Devouring Aura becomes an aura that consumes all corpses within 15 yards to restore 11 essence per corpse. The range of this effect is increased by 50% for each of your gold radius pickup. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this one and see if we can...
No.
Okay, so this doesn't have... So you see that it has an aura now. So I have this little circle that's going around me. And so now this isn't really an active. It's a little bit more of a passive. So it becomes an aura that consumes all corpses and restores 11%. So it's recovering one more, is now basically passive. And the range increases by 50% of your gold pickup radius. So this may actually end up working with like a gold pickup build, which is really weird. But It is one of those secondary skills that a lot of people don't think about and may have some use here. This could provide a lot of constant essence regen. So let's actually, since it consumes corpses, let's bring back the annoying dude. Stupid flesh golem. Okay. And let's see if we can get him. Let's see what happens with our essence. So it's at 215 out of 250. Let's have him collapse right here. And it consumed all of that, and I am back to full. Okay, so pretty nifty little thing there. So I actually kind of like it, I have to say. This one may be very useful, especially if it's a passive. It's one less ability to kind of deal with. If all you have to do is get corpses, you have your command golem that you can use with that. You could constantly work on regenning your essence and summoning a skeletal mage. So I really like this one, actually. Next one is your Voracious Rune. So reduces all essence costs by 2% for each corpse consumed for 5 seconds. It'll be interesting to see how exactly this works. Because you would be consuming, and then it would reduce the cost. You'd have to really kind of burst cast in order to make the most use of this. So kind of an interesting one. There's not too many that are crazy high cost in terms of an essence cost. So I don't know how much viability this has. We'll have to see. And then you have Cannibalize, so each corpse consumed also restores 3% health. So this one would be a nice one as well in terms of a health restore, especially if you can combine it with Devour Aura with either a legendary item or a set bonus. But I think from this set, Devouring Aura may be kind of the key in order to have kind of a passive essence restore and your command golems. Now, Revive. Let me go back here. Get rid of him. So, and we'll go into those abilities also, but just looking now at the Revive. So, target an area, reviving up to 10 corpses. Actually, let me... I guess I will keep him out. He is annoying, so I am going to turn down the sound here. I'll have to bring it up later. But it looks like my command golem is actually going to have a purpose to kind of test some of this stuff out. There we go. He's nice and quiet. Okay, so let me have him fall there. So let's check Revive. So the first one, and I'll do it with some of the runes, so because I have to keep on getting him to crash otherwise. But so damage taken is reduced for each revived minion active. Okay, so let's see how this actually shows up.
Give it more time.
I have to wait for him to kind of get his cooldown back. Okay. So as we continue to look at this, Horrific. When you revive a corpse, enemies within 20 yards run in fear. Damage dealt is turned into poison from the minions. Fear is one of those abilities that's nice because it helps to kind of save you, but it's a little bit questionable in terms of pulling more mobs and those kind of things. So fear is a little bit interesting. The next one is Purgatory. Now, revive minions degenerate back into a usable corpse at the end of their duration. Now, this will allow you to kind of keep a running group of minions. So that could be pretty neat. Again, you would probably want to mix it with one of the other ones. The next one is Recklessness. So revive minions deal an additional 15% damage, but last 5 seconds. Damage dealt is turned into cold. And then we have Ablation. So increases the damage of revived creatures by 20%, but each revive now costs 3% health, and it goes up to 10 corpses, so you're looking at 30% health in order to use Oblation. Nice ability. Again, health costs, steep health costs if you try to get everyone, so you want to be kind of careful on that. Now, let's look at how some of these will work. So let me start with Purgatory, since it will bring back. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can just select one. Okay, it looks like I just have that one corpse, and let's see if we can revive it. Okay, so it turns into kind of a mini flesh golem. Okay, and because of Purgatory, when he ends, he should turn back into a regular. So give it a couple seconds, and he turned back into a corpse. Perfect. So the next one we'll look at is the personal army, and we'll see if it provides any kind of buff or what it does. So we have a little one there, and then personal army, damage reduction for each enemy revived. So we have the little buff that's here. He should last for 10 seconds, and then he'll disappear as well. Okay, and this one does not turn back into a corpse, so you see that he is gone now. The next one is the horrific return. So when you revive, it'll create a fear. Let's see if we can target. There we go. Still got two, but so they came up. They're a little bit more green in color, and then everything around would have ran away in fear. Next one is recklessness. So increases damage is dealt, but it's not going to last as long. It's cold based, so I'm kind of expecting it to be a blue minion. Yep, as you would expect, he's all cold. And now he's gone. And then the oblation. I'm expecting to be kind of a blood red. And that they are, and you see that there was a pretty big health drop. Life regen will probably be key in a build like this. Life on hit. Anything where you're regenning your health, because you're summoning more powerful creatures, definitely increasing your damage, but you're losing a lot of health, and that can be potentially costly. So those were the corpses section. Next, let's look at the reanimation. So reanimation has 4 different ones. You have the command skeletons, the command golem, army of the dead, and land of the dead. So command skeletons. So you can command skeletons to target an enemy, and it increases the damage against that by 50%. And then passively, it raises a new skeleton every 2 seconds to a maximum of 7, and skeletal minions deal 50% weapon damage. Looking at the runes, you have the Enforcer, which reduces the active essence cost to 25%. So this one is currently at 50, so it makes it into half. Useful just to kind of get them all on the same page, but may not be necessary to have depending on your build. Frenzy. Commanded skeletons go into a frenzy, gaining 25% attack speed while they attack the target. So if you command them to attack a target using your main ability, your active ability, and then they deal more damage, that can be good. You'll want to constantly have that on rotation. If you can combine that with Enforcer, that would be good, because then you're using it more often. Dark Mending, skeleton minions will heal you for 0.5% of your total health per hit while being commanded. So again, you'll want to use that frequently with Enforcer potentially, and then trying to gain heal. So we'll have to look at the unique legendaries and those kind of things, and we'll go through each of those from the vendor in different videos. So next is the Freezing Grasp. So target of your command is frozen for 3 seconds. And then the Kill command now commands your skeletons to explode, dealing 80% weapon damage as poison to enemies within 50 yards. So you're getting a lot of different abilities here with the 80% weapon damage and then poison. So that one could be potentially nice. Next one is the Command Golem, who is a good ability, but it's a little annoying because he makes a lot of grunting noises, which I'm not a fan of. But Command Golem, so you can command the Golem to a targeted location, and that's because I have an active rune here. So let me... Okay. So right now it collapses into 5 corpses, and it raises a Flesh Golem to fight for you, and the Golem deals 450% weapon damage. If you go with the Flesh, it now collapses into 8 corpses. So that's 3 extra corpses. Depending on what abilities you're using, those 3 corpses can make a big difference. If you're reviving, that's 3 extra minions. If you're doing other things, so something to just kind of keep in mind there. You have the Ice. So command the Golem to targeted location where it freezes enemies for 3 seconds and increases their chance to be critically struck. You have the Bone Golem. So the Bone Golem becomes a tornado. So this one's actually pretty interesting. So it becomes a tornado of bones carrying all enemies to targeted locations, stuns them for 2 turns, and deals 2,000% weapon damage. We can take a look at how this looks. So you see that it just kind of takes everything. It's pretty nifty looking. You lose your active of creating corpses though, so this one would be really much more of one that you, if you would want to kind of keep it by your side. You have the shallow grave, so every 10 enemies killed extends the duration by 1 second and up to a maximum of 2 seconds. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong one. Oh, it's because my command golem is on cooldown. It's not letting me change it. So I'll come back to the command golem here in a second. Next one is Army of Dead. And the Army of Dead is going to raise a massive skeletal army to pummel the target location, dealing 12,000% weapon damage in a 15-yard radius. So you're looking at a very localized burst damage with this one. Okay, before we go into the runes, our command golem is up. I won't make the mistake of using one of the abilities this time. So the next one is the decay golem rune for the command golem. And the golem consumes corpses at the targeted location, increasing its damage by 30% per corpse. And then the last one is the blood golem. So sacrifices itself, healing you for 25% of your health, and reconstructs at the targeted location. As the golem reconstructs, veiny tendrils damage nearby enemies for 450% weapon damage. Now, the blood golem may be crucial for any build that requires you to spend health. 25% of your health is a really nice ability to have. Remember, the cooldown is 60 seconds, so this may be something where you would want to combine it with an Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac in order to continue to reduce your cooldowns. You would want a diamond in your helm in order to reduce that cooldown. So you could potentially use the Blood Golem more frequently. So something to kind of keep in mind with this one. So Command Golem, I think, is going to be one of the skills that no matter what build you're using, there is a rune that would kind of supplement it, whether it's Flesh Golem for additional corpses, whether it's the Bone Golem in order to help keep targets in a certain area. This kind of mimics the Piranha Nado that goes with the Witch Doctor in some of the builds. You have the Blood Golem, which is health recovery, so those are all really good. Army of Dead has a cooldown of 120 seconds, but as you remember, it has 12,000% weapon damage, so it's a massive, massive burst of damage. Again, probably something you would want to run with an Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac in order to continue to reduce its cooldown. You have the Blighted Grasp, so skeleton hands range from the ground, damaging enemies within 15 yards for 14,000 instead of 12,000. Weapon damage is poison. You have Death Valley. The skeletal army knocks all affected enemies towards the center. So again, this will kind of keep them all together, but it's a really high cooldown. Unconventional warfare. So skeletons will rise from the ground and attack random targets for 50,000 total weapon damage as physical over 4 seconds. So more damage over less time, and it's going to be a little bit more random, but it's kind of similar in the sense that this is going to be kind of in a general area as well. So this one is going to do a lot of extra burst damage. You have the Frozen, so the army tramples enemies in a line, so you can kind of direct them a little bit and turns damage into cold. Again, still 12,000. And then the Death Storm, you can see this one has an additional 20% health cost. It raises a storm of dead that surround you, damaging enemies for 15,500 weapon damage as physical over 5 seconds. Now, this is going to be more for a melee build because it is around you. So it's going to kind of create kind of this whirlwind around you, and it'll just kind of deal damage. But it's limited in terms of how long it lasts. So for a melee build, this could be potentially useful as well. But again, 20% health cost. You would have to see how your health recovery is. Next one is Land of the Dead. All corpse skills can be used at will for the duration. Now, it's pretty interesting, and the duration is 10 seconds. This can be potentially interesting that if you can just keep on casting things. I'm not entirely sure how the best way to make a build around this would be. So, for example, we can test out some things here. And let's make it Land of the Dead. And we'll look at the runes here, then we'll kind of play around with it. So enemies in Land of the Dead are periodically frozen. Okay, then you have, and these are the corpse skills. So these are these ones, and which ones you would want to use. And again, if you combine that with potentially revive or something like that, you could be just doing a lot of things repeatedly. Frozen lands, enemies in the Land of the Dead are periodically frozen. Plague Lands, Land of the Dead deals up to 10,000% weapon damage as poison to enemies over restoration. Shallow Graves, every 10 enemies kills extends the duration by 1 second up to 2 seconds. So only 2 seconds additional. It is nice, especially given what you're able to do, but it's still kind of meh. And then your skills do not cost essence while Land of the Dead is active. So this will allow you to use some other things as well. I don't know how this will work with the Skeletal Mage. So we can test that out here because I haven't tested that yet. And then the last one is Land of Plenty. You are healed for 2% of your maximum life whenever an enemy is killed while Land of the Dead is active. So let's keep this one on for now, just so we can get the health. So we'll turn on Land of the Dead. And we'll want something where we can continually cast for this. Now, we don't want to necessarily do anything that consumes it permanently. So let's look at what we can do in order to... These ones all require a target, so that's always going to be an issue. Damage taken. We'll put Purgatory, but I don't think it's going to have much effect. And then we'll also try Skeletal Mage with Singularity. Actually, we need the ones that doesn't cost Essence. So your skills don't cost Essence while active dead. So we might be able to summon a lot of Skeletal Mages here. They won't necessarily have the highest damage, but you could still cast a lot of them. So we'll see how this works here. Okay, so we'll cast... Oh, and then we'll need the Corpse Golem here. And we'll summon some more. Okay, so we have our Corpse Golem. We'll have him create some corpses. And then Revive, will be able to revive them. They'll turn back at the end. Land of the Dead, and then shouldn't cost skills, so we'll keep on summoning. So this is going to be our general idea. Let's see how this plays out. So we have Land of the Dead active. We revive. You can see we're constantly reviving.
I need essence.
Okay, and my Land of the Dead ran out before I could test out the Skeletal Mage. But I was able to do a lot of revives. And they turn back into corpses. I actually have more corpses now than before. So when it says you can use your corpse skills at will, it looks like it doesn't even require you to actually have the corpses, because it looks like it's doubled my corpses. So that's pretty neat. I can see why they're saying that this is pretty overpowered. And we'll wait for this to come back here shortly. And then we'll try the Skeletal Mage and see how that works. If we can keep on summoning. It's not supposed to require any essence. So we should be able to do that. Let's create some more corpses here just for the fun of it. And so you're able to see how some of these skills can kind of work together. Similar to kind of the current Diablo 3, some of them may all be in one grouping. So maybe they're all in this reanimation that you really want. Maybe there's one reanimation that allows you to use a lot of corpses, or whatever it is. We'll look at the different combinations, and definitely the sets are going to have a big part to play in terms of what you get with the 6-piece bonus and how to kind of build around that. Okay, so we have Land of the Dead back up now. Let's go ahead and see if we can keep on summoning. So it's not even letting me summon a skeletal. It's not even letting me summon a Skeletal Mage, which isn't really good because it shouldn't be working that way. So we'll see what happens there. I'll probably report this as a bug, I think, because it really should be, if your skills do not cost essence while Land of the Dead is active, I should be able to summon Skeletal Mage with 0. So let me actually leave the game, come back, and let's see if we can summon a regular Skeletal Mage repeatedly. And this is part of the beta test as well. So we're looking for different bugs and those kind of things. So let me change the Skeletal Mage to making a Skeletal Archer just for now. Okay, so we'll turn on Land of the Dead and keep on summoning skeletal archers. There we go. So this is working fine. So it is the skeletal mage with singularity that is bugged. So I am going to report that. Yay, I am doing my job as a beta tester. Okay, so the next category, so we looked secondary, we looked at reanimation. Next one are the curses. So the first one is Decrepify, and it'll cause a curse that reduces movement speed and reduces damage of affected enemies by 20% for 30 seconds. Dizziness, cursed enemies have a 10% chance to be stunned when hit. Enfeeblement increases the potency of their movement reduction to 100%, decaying normal potency. Then you have Opportunist, so gain 3% movement speed increase for every enemy cursed. Could be potentially good for a speed grift build. Wither, damage reduction increased to 30%, but no longer reduces movement speed. And Borrowed Time, gain 1% cooldown reduction for every enemy cursed. This could go well with with like a Land of the Dead build or anything like that that has a cooldown. So this one could have a lot of use. Next one is Leech. So for the cost of 10 essence, curse the target area. Cursed enemies have a chance to heal the attacker when they are struck for 1% of their total health. And then the first rune, so transmittable, enemies that die while cursed will spread the curse to a nearby affected enemy. So when you have Leech, they are constantly healing when they're struck, and this will keep on moving from target to target. So you'll always have a Leech up as long as there's something within range. Nearby, I think, is usually within 5 yards, if I remember correctly. So you'll definitely need this more for grouped characters, but it is potentially useful. Osmosis, each cursed enemy increases your life regen by 751 per second, which could be really nice with one of the gems that gives you a shield based on your life regen, if this contributes to that. Blood Flask, whenever a cursed enemy dies, your potion cooldown is reduced by 1, so you'll be able to kind of use that a little bit more. Sanguine End, when a cursed enemy dies, you are healed for 200% of your life per kill. This one, pretty awesome if you're doing anything that requires a health build. So you can just keep on killing things and you're healed for 200% of your life per kill. So you would want a high life per kill, try to build that up so it recovers a lot of your percentage, and that could be a really nice addition to that build. And then Cursed Ground now curses the ground, healing you for 0.5% of your maximum life every second for each enemy in the cursed area. Again, useful for all these are useful for gaining health back, so you'd want to see how that fits into your build. Next one is Frailty. It's a crippling curse that instantly kills enemies at low health. Okay, so pretty useful in taking out low targets, although you would have to get them all below 15% health. So you have to see how exactly is the best way to do that. Cursed enemies take 15% increased damage from your minions. That can help with reducing their health. Volatile Death. Cursed enemies explode for 100% of weapon damage on their death. So once you get one, then you can keep on kind of creating this chain. So this could be useful. Aura Frailty becomes an aura that curses all enemies within 15 yards. And then the range of this effect is increased by your gold pickup radius. So it's the second time we've kind of seen this gold pickup radius come into play. Then you have the Harvest Essence. Gain 2 essence when a cursed enemy dies. Now 2 is a very low, you would have to curse a large group of things. Sometimes the groups don't end up being more than about 10 to 20 targets. So you're looking at maybe 40 essence that you would gain back in any kind of group for the cost of a spell. May or may not be useful. So it's more in terms of the practicality. It's a nice gain. It's nice that you can gain essence for a cursed enemy, but unless you have a large mob, it's not going to be terribly beneficial. So may or may not need to use this one. And then Early Grave triggers at 18% life, but costs 10% of your life instead. So again, health cost, but it kills things at a little bit of a higher level, so maybe a little bit more practical. And then the last group is the Blood and Bone. Now this one, some of the names may seem very familiar to what they were in Diablo 2. They're not exactly the same. They have some slight modifications. So we'll kind of go through this. The first one is the Bone Armor. Now the Bone Armor rips bones from nearby enemies, dealing 125% weapon damage as physical. And it creates an armor for you that reduces damage taken by 3% per enemy hit up to a maximum of 10 enemies. Now, this means that you will have to be in somewhat nearby range to a bunch of characters in order to activate your bone armor. So this could be something that you would want on a melee mancer, since you will have enemies around you. You can get your 10 enemies. You can reduce your damage by 30%. You're dealing a little bit of weapon damage and causing some survival. So this could be potentially nice. The cooldown on this is 10 seconds, but the bone armor lasts for 60 seconds. So you should always be able to keep a bone armor up without much issue. Looking at the runes, your bone armor will increase damage dealt to 145% of weapon damage instead of the 125. Dislocation, enemies hit are also stunned for 2 seconds. Limited immunity, now the cooldown is 45 seconds, but your armor absorbs all incoming damage and grants immunity to all control impairing effects. So this is a nice little kind of bubble save my butt type of rune. It is pretty nice. So just to kind of see. So you no longer get that 30% though. So that's what I wanted to click and show you guys. That it rips the bones, it deals damage, but now it absorbs it for 5 seconds. So you don't get that continued physical damage reduction. May be good, may not be good. I know on my monk, I like to have my little bubble in order to kind of run away from things if need be. So this could potentially have a use. Just something to kind of keep an eye out, but you do lose that 30%, up to 30%, I should say, damage reduction. The Harvest of Anguish rune, bone armor, also increases your movement speed by 1% for each enemy hit. And then Thy Flesh Sustained. You get a cost associated with it, but it increases your life per second by 10% per enemy hit. So you can increase your life per second by 100%. So this could be really nice as well, combined again with that legendary gem that creates a bubble for you based on your life per health regen. So this one could have a lot of use depending on your build. The only one I think I'm a little questionable on is limited immunity, just depending on how you're trying to set up your build. Next, Bone Spirit. So you launch a Bone Spirit that will seek enemies, deal 4,000% weapon damage. This one is on a charge timer, so it's not going to require essence. It has its own kind of charge thing. You'll gain a charge every 15 seconds and can store up to 3 charges. Recharge time is reduced by 1 second for each corpse you consume. This one, it can be really nice. You could generate a lot of bone spirits very quickly. You would want to combine it with a corpse build. Looking at the runes, astral projection damage is increased by 15% for each enemy that bone spirit passes through while seeking its target. Damage turns into cold. Yet panic attack, enemies within 10 yards are feared. Again, I'm not a big fan of fear in general, but if you are, then this might be something that's nice for you. Poltergeist, so increases the maximum number of charges to 4. So now you could potentially have 4 bone spirits right off the bat before needing to reduce the timer with corpse. Bone Spirit explodes, dealing 1250% weapon damage as cold to all enemy. So now it deals 4,000 weapon on impact and then explodes for 1250. So you have a nice little additional burst there. And then Possession, Bone Spirit will now charm the target for 10 seconds at the cost of 10 health. Unless you're regenerating health at a really fast rate, if you try to summon multiple Bone Spirits, you're running out of health very quickly. So you want to be careful about this build. Then you have Blood Rush. So Blood Rush, cooldown 5 seconds, cost 5% health. Shed your mortal flesh and reappear up to 50 yards away. So it's kind of your teleport, get out of harm's way type ability. Usually pretty nice to have. It is a 5% health cost though, so not very high, but something to kind of be mindful of. Potency increases your armor by 100% for 2 seconds after casting. So while you're running away, you have a little bit more of armor. Transfusion heals for 2% of your maximum health for every enemy pass through. So as you run through your enemies, you can get a little bit more. Molting, leave a corpse at your original location when used. So this is going to be kind of like a duplicate clone type ability. In that it's not going to be something that anyone can attack, but you leave a corpse. So you can kind of explode it and do your corpse abilities on it. So it's kind of nice that you can do that, because corpses do have a lot of use. Hemostasis, remove the health cost. So if you just want to run around, there you go. You just have the 5-second cooldown. And then Metabolism provides an additional charge, but doubles the health cost. Okay, so something I guess you just have to see how it works, but this one is interesting. I don't understand why it's providing a charge, considering this isn't a charge base, only Bone Spirit is.
That needs to recharge.
Unless it lets you do 2. So let's see if it lets you do 2 now. Okay, so it does. So it lets you kind of keep 2, and that's going to be similar to your Monk's Dashing Strike ability. But you do have the health cost associated with it. So that's the Blood Rush. And then the last one is a Simulacrum. So this one cost is 50% health. 50% health. But you create a Simulacrum made of blood that will duplicate your essence spenders for 15 seconds. So anything you spend essence on, this will also spend it on. So you will basically be doubling your damage for half your health. Depending on what kind of trade-off you want, this could be a really nice damage increase. You have to make sure you watch your health regen. Then you're looking at the runes. So the curse form, while active, your curse skills now apply all 3 curses. So looking at the curses again, you can do all of these, including Leech, including Frailty, including Decrepify. You can reduce speed, you can steal health, and you can kill everything that's in low health. So this could be potentially nice. Again, your health regen is going to be the main key because you need to recover after that 50% health. This thing only lasts for 15 seconds and has 120 second cooldown. So this is going to be kind of a burst damage type of thing, not a consistent sustained damage. Reservoir, your maximum essence is increased by 100% while your Simulacrum is active. So that means you can cast more things. You have Self-Sacrifice. If you would die with the Simulacrum active, instead the Simulacrum is destroyed and you are fully healed. So if you would die, your Simulacrum is destroyed and you are fully healed. So this is your I don't want to die thing. So even if you die, if you use 50% health and you die and your Simulacrum is up, then you would come back at full health. Now, I don't know if you're below 50% health, if you use this, how that works. We can test that here in a second. You can see that some of these are PH because they're still being worked on. So you have the Blood Debt. So life costs for skills are reduced by 75% while Simulacrum is active. So you spend 50% initially, then all your other ones cost half. Could be potentially useful. And then you have Blood and Bone. Now also creates a Simulacrum of Bone, but the duration is reduced to 10 seconds. Okay, so now that you're creating that, it's I don't know how useful this is. It creates a second Simulacrum, so you're increasing the burst, but it's 10 seconds of burst instead of 15 seconds of burst. It could be useful. It does increase your burst, and you have to have a lot of essence spenders. It's still only costing 50 health, so Blood and Bone could be very useful as well. Let's look at Self-Sacrifice to see how this works. And we'll want to equip some health stealers here. So let me see what I can put on here that uses a lot of health. That uses health as a cost. And I will try and see if we can test out that thing. I can't use them on that because I don't have anything. Okay, I think Bone Spear should work. So we will try and see what happens. Okay, so I'm below 50% health. Okay, and then it doesn't even allow me to do it.
I grow. Not enough health.
Okay. So it creates the Simulacrum, which is right there. My health is low, so it doesn't even let me kind of kill myself with it. So that's a nice thing. and there's no way for me to kind of suicide at this point because it doesn't let you do any of your costs if you don't have them. So those are all of the abilities of the Necro right now as of May 11th on the test run. So I hope you guys kind of like going through this. I know I kind of went slow and showed you all the runes. There's a lot of different things to go through. We did end up finding something pretty cool though that I can report, which is a skeletal mage with a singularity having the problem where it doesn't summon. So it's supposed to raise a skeleton with 40%, 400% weapon damage, and then it's supposed to consume all essence to summon a powerful minion, and the damage increases by 3%, and it's not even summoning that extra while Land of the Dead is on. So something that I will report, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. The next videos will be based on the test realm, so I will buy some of these different sets. I'll collect my blood shards, and we'll work on looking at these different sets and what kind of combinations would be best for those. With that, we can go ahead and end the video here. So if you like what you saw, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. It helps us know what information you liked and didn't like, and helps us to make videos in the future. I'll try to condense the Necromancer videos a little bit more. There's always a lot to go through with these being kind of new characters. Please make sure to check out our website, realityskewedgamers.blogspot.com. We're posting information there periodically. We go through different games. Our primary game is Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, but we're also doing a lot with Diablo 3 now as we've kind of gotten addicted to the game. Make sure you check out our Range Duckety videos so you can kind of see the gameplay between myself, Ranger J1999, and Mage Ducky as we play Diablo 3. We've recently started seasonal characters that are kind of ahead of the videos, so we'll be catching up on those videos soon as well. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter. You'll get updates as to when we're going live with some of the different videos, whether Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, whether we're doing a live stream of Diablo. So please check us out, tell your friends, and we'll check you out next time.